Okay. Hello, my name is Dr. Joe Vertino. I am a spiritual guide, author, healer, and musician. And this is one of my many videos, a very important video. Um, as per one of the sections on my website, which you may well be on right now, called Clarity in Life. We could say that's why so many videos and why this video is so important also. Um, but yeah, so the title of this video is Practical Self-Love, which, yes, is self-explanatory, but also implies, so much. And this video is basically to demonstrate my intelligence in the topic so as to get hired or so as to generally assist with our growth. So workshop is a word, that implies that not that we are something that we're sawing, with kind of like a tool, but that it's a very, very appropriate mindset, to have. And that, so this would be one of the topics that I would apply to myself professionally that I could do practical self-love. So in this way, it's lovely to know that you don't have to, working with me in a workshop or other words, can be put in that category. You don't have to divulge or open up or share, at all in the sense of your personal life and your agendas, your feelings, your thoughts, beliefs, but that, God gave me these two hands and this voice and my persona and my intelligence so as to prove that to you. And that to me is a wonderful thing. I could say, even as just a healer, um, for the sake of comfort, in our own skin and in our own lifetime, and in our own healing and growth process. So in this way, people that recognize that growth and healing is a process, this, kind of benchmark in someone's life of this kind of work, practical self-love workshop would be something that is a wonderful occasion. And that in no way is it about disabling anything we could say in our life, but it's a joyful, serious, real addition to it as it is right now. So going into a little bit of content, that naturally we can recognize that the mind uh, of every human being wants to have a reason. So the reason for this being a wonderful thing, practical self-love, uh, work or workshop, is that being centered, we could say, what are the things that bring me to my center? What are the things that bring me into coherence? What are the things that bring me into balance? What are the things that help me to have clarity in life? And that every single one of those things I just said is aided or increased or acquired or maintained through this specifically. And I say that because it's not really obvious, right? Practical self-love. You would think that maybe it's something that will just maybe make my emotions not feel tied up in knots for a little while if we're having a difficult lifetime. But it's amazing how you could say the mystical can grace people, in this kind of focus. Uh, and I love the first word in the sense that practical, that there's no other word ever that I would use, before self-love in context of my professional, career work. Um, and yeah, this is the thing I guess we could say is, yeah, there is a an obviousness to our subjective personal heart and our experience and our affect, and our mannerisms and all of that being part of ourself, and that all of that being something that we can work to as a goal, for maybe years and years out, to love, right? That being self-love, on a kind of understandable, reasonable level. But then also in this way that self-acceptance, of this gets into this very serious territory that's technically psychology of the comparison mind, which is technically egoic. I'm comparing myself to my mom, my dad, my peers, my husband, an aunt on the sidewalk, and that this comparison game is actually disdainful, to life, and we are life. And so in that way, I'm very clear on my stability in the truth, in this topic. And, like I said, living up to already that first word of practical. And you'll also notice that so far in this video, which is really the guts of this thing that I'm offering, of a workshop, something I could do in person, online, etc. But that basically in this way that the idea of being centered through practical self-love practice is very real, but also there is a good enoughness in it. I mean, the sanity of it is, well, we can only be doing one thing at a time, right? So in that way, that's all that's going on. And then the big point that I could say that resonates with me, I'll share a little bit, about me, I guess personally, that religion, we throw that sentence in, religion and politics, but religion in this way, we talk about, saints down the ages and seeing them depicted and holding their heart, and it seeming like it could creep in to this, subject, but there is no need for that, in the sense that you are the whole thing, the whole house that we would be working in and around, and being in awe of, and seeing, the whole landscape, in context of just this one house, in that way. And that there's no need to bring in technically other figures, right? To go to the extreme of, we think of someone like Jesus Christ, this perfect human being. So him stays out. And that religion also doesn't need to creep into it, like a plant that's might not be poisonous, but this is my garden. This is not your garden, herb of the ground cover, right? So in that way, you might start to tune into me already in 7 minutes so far here, that this is a very, very real life we're living, and these are very real words that I'm speaking, and that I'm very adamant, as an author, that's a good word and it's accurate. And that's what you would want, in this work. And this work, you don't have to, go into categorizing it either, in the sense, right, that there's a freedom in leaving it alone, and that practical self-love, to me, the most important word is the first word, practical, that you don't need to go further, that this is something that is only for you, and ultimately that, your gut instincts and your truest, feelings in the closet of your heart, and, kind of like the secret song that you wrote that no one ever might ever hear, all of that's beautiful and lovely, just as it is, and just as we're understanding it right now. And to give you a powerful demonstration with words of what this would entail, but also, to be honest, this, isn't all just serious, and that the joy of, we could say, a lightness of being, my beautiful window with my Tibetan prayer flags, to mention a religion, forgive me. But that what matters is what, that we can see the colors, right? And this whitewash of the sun over here is like that lightness, that yes, okay, serious stuff is part of life. And then, you're there for it, and then that's it. And it ends. And then in this way, we kind of can be in the more of a wafty, lighthearted atmosphere. And that's basically, we could say, this workshop, in the sense that all of the possible, we could say, aspects of consciousness are relevant to the workshop, right? In the sense that we are the center spool of all of that string, and that string being what is like connected to really any and all, fill in the blank, right? And that in that way, that there's nothing to worry about, because I know that the mind, right, might go right then, don't mess with my spool, don't mess with my strings, don't mess with my heart. And in that way, there's absolutely nothing to worry about, because that, to go to the ultimate catastrophe, right, what would be the destruction, and or the opposite of self-love, and and in that kind of way. But who would it be? It would be other people, right? But that's not possible. So now I guess you could see how this is maybe before, the earlier 7, 8 minutes of this, maybe about 15, 20-minute video, of which we're about halfway done. And please do reach out, joevertino.org, email, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, what have you, anytime, day or night, for whatever reason. I'm very respectful and interested, no matter what. But yes, that in this way that the that we could say, coming back to the centering, and that could make it all the much easier. And in that way, if we talk about simply the one word, peace, right? And like I said, there's nothing else. There's no other strings attached, a religion, a figure from the past, in that way. And that peace is something that, of course, we all crave, desire, want it to stick around, want to be married to it if it was a man, right? Want to have it as a child, this kind of thing. And in that way, that this is we could say the peaceful, the peace, the real truest peace, comes from a non-denial attitude, right? So practical self-love. Are we looking the bull in the eyes, or what? Right? We have one of these, I don't know if you've seen those, kind of outside of the colleges and stuff, that you have the in Buffalo, we have the bisons that are next to the highway in different places that are fake, but they look like the animal from about 10 feet away. And then you go, oh. And then we have a bull, or is it Chicago? They have all kinds of cool modern art nowadays with our airplanes and pieces of, 10-foot teardrops on a street corner all of a sudden. But in that way, that looking the bull in the eyes, and that if we know the bull is real, that we're here, and that we have eyes to see and perceive, then you can really just go with the most reasonable perspective, that this would be that next step accordingly, right? And like I said earlier, I don't have to know anything further about your life, and you don't have to share it to fully live, but that's the thing, there's still a calling, to use a very serious word, in all of us. And that practical self-love, I'm honored to be able to kind of hit the nail on the head, so to speak. And that it's impossible for there to be a prediction of the future, because you aren't a science experiment, So my practicality is that I'm stable in myself and my character and my expertise, and that is my grounded and founded nature, right? So like the bull, and we're here and we're seeing and we're experiencing. I think of like the zodiac, the sign Taurus, being grounded, the earth sign, practical, which is a wonderful zodiac, the only one I might mention, in this video, but wonderfully appropriate. And even further, going in context of the next thing outside of ourself would be like other people, close, and relationships, right? Our relations, in that way. And that it's interesting, the zodiac, Taurus, the archangel for this zodiac sign is Archangel Shamuel, the archangel of divine relationships, right? So that implication is kind of constantly there, like a carrot in front of our face. And then when we start trusting, we stop hating naturally along the way, kind of like we wake up one day and the hate kind of kind of went away, kind of behind our back, and without having to do anything or drop our bags or anything, because you're trusting, and you deserve to be happy, right? And not suffer needlessly. And, to give you the best reason to take me on in any kind of regard, with respect to your entire, organization, or what have you, to use a big word. But basically in that way, that that this also does help, we could say, kind of the river of life, and that the kind of pit, of that sea, being yourself, and that this being kind of a returning into that, if we ever hath, ventured, so to speak, ulterior. But in that way, practical self-love, and that that I could say again on kind of a checklist of reasons, right? An intellectual level, a wonderful reason. There's other people, there's animals, there's nature, there's apparently angels and weather and all of this, and people in the past that write books, and that we can relate, so to speak, to all of that, and that in that truth, that it's very okay for us to say, I'm interested in this because only, so to speak, of that fact. That's fine. It's wonderful, So thank you so much for tuning in. I pray that you feel um, we could say more resonant with your heart, your only heart, that this makes it easier for you to do one thing, and that thing being trust. And that yes, 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 yes. So I'm so grateful to have this gift of, I like to call it transformation, as a healer. And healing is ultimately, just like I said about us, right? It's unpredictable, it's a process, it's something that's real, just like pain and wounding is real. But ultimately, healing and transformation, positive change, is more real than the pain and the wounds, because the pain and the wounds, by definition, go away. That means they're not forever, you know? So, anyways, thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you. Please do like, share, comment, subscribe, so to speak, and check out my other stuff. I have books, The Reform of the Education System. Barnes& and Noble just started here in the beginning of 2026. Says 35-year-old Dr. Joe here in Buffalo. Selling my first book, My Own Religion, The Power of Love, which I am so honored to have that 266-page beautiful manifesto. And practically, to give another reason here at the end, a business reason actually, that when and if you start to vibrate in this way, that your business will have, we could say, an end or beginning, result that is a positive manifestation, because there's no one else in your shoes in the most serious way. So to me, that's ultimately practical, because well, the first thing is, we don't have to be in denial of anything, right? Okay. And that's it, right? I'm just alive. But then in that way that you can start to, and I'm telling you that if you take me on and hire me for this workshop, that basically that's a guarantee. It's either that we could say, to share it, openly and honestly, and I'll wrap up here, that on a business level, that because you are an unavoidable occasion, that the business that you are focusing on, uh, with your arms, as mine are focusing for your benefit right now, it's proven, it's true that that would be something that would, to use a word, there would be clarity, to use a new age term, like downloaded in context of that aspect of your life, your professional life, your career, business. Um, and I'm, like I said, one more time, I'm so honored, and grateful to have this gift. And I pray that you have enjoyed my beautiful Labradorite precious stone here for respiration. And don't worry, I'm not out of breath. This is my job. I'm like a trained dog. And once you get going, you get in the flow. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Please, yeah, don't do anything for me, do it for yourself. And I really do mean that. And that, yes. All right. Angel blessings. Great.